Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and welcome to another Stroke Buddies Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. That's always a mouthful. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Jennifer Prather. She's a clinical researcher specializing in stroke recovery. And Jennifer is also a certified mindfulness coach and a certified nature forest therapy guide. I want to hear a little bit about that. So thank you for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me here, Ralph, and everyone else. It's a pleasure to join everyone this afternoon, and I'm really excited to share my current research that's taking place at the University of Tennessee in Memphis. So just a little bit of background about myself. Like I said, I'm a PhD student at University of Tennessee. In addition to that, I also work full-time in clinical research. A couple of years ago, around 2018, I had decided to go back and try for my PhD. I have a passion and a drive for clinical research, but several years previous to that, my mother was diagnosed with small cell lung cancer, and I became her immediate caregiver, as well as my two sisters. And through that process, it taught me a lot about what I didn't understand about recovery and being diagnosed with a condition, a chronic condition, and about the journey of navigating recovery together. And it was so influential in my life, in my experience, that I felt like the best way I could honor that with her is going back and doing a PhD. And so that helps you kind of understand why am I doing this? I have a love for research, but I also have a passion for caregivers. And in addition to that, I'm fully passionate about integrative holistic health. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you'll let me know what you can see.
We're good.
You're good? All righty. Then we'll go ahead and get started. So the topic of my research at the University of Tennessee is titled A Modified Mindfulness-Based Intervention to Improve Stress and Quality of Life in Stroke Survivors and Support Persons. And I usually refer to the study as the A-MAMS study, AMAM study. So as you can see, I'm still a PhD candidate, and that's the PhD C. That's what the C means. I'm a candidate. I haven't finished the research, but it is in progress right now. And let me see. Oops. So some background about their research and why stroke survivors and why caregivers. Again, I had mentioned earlier, I was a support person for my mother, and during her journey and lung cancer. And that's where I became acquainted with the concept of dyadic recovery. And dyadic recovery and dyadic health management is a survivor and a support person slash caregiver. So you'll hear me reference support person in this study, and that's because caregivers are usually thought of as direct relatives. They live with the survivor. It's someone immediate to you and your presence in recovery. But support person is a little bit more stretched out in that in this study, it's not necessarily someone who lives with you, but someone who you consider to have helped you navigate recovery in whatever method possible. But again, going back to the background and the significance of this research study, as you are all aware, patients are afflicted by stroke. Patients who are afflicted by stroke bear a significant burden of disability. So even patients with good outcomes are compounded or have experiences of profound loss. This can be due to emotional, cognitive, and physical dysfunctions. Traditional post-stroke recovery and care often neglects the influence of psychosocial outcomes, and that's where this research really comes in. So in addition to the patient or the survivor, we also have the caregiver who's trying to navigate recovery along with the individual. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but nearly 4 million support persons are in the United States care for approximately 6.6 million stroke survivors at home. That's a big number. So survivors and support persons, once the stroke takes place, it's kind of like bringing a baby home after delivery. It's little understanding of what the recovery process is going to be like. And individuals are frequently unprepared for the demands that they'll face, helping each other in this process, navigating post stroke life together. But serving as a support person for a stroke survivor, in addition to that, has been recognized to impact the caregiver's quality of life and biopsychosocial well-being. And this can be in a positive way or a negative way. So that being said, recovery is a symbiotic process. What happens to you happens to me, and we share it between each other. And the well-being of one individual influences the other's outcome of well-being. And it leads to, or it can lead to, a marginalized outcome or comorbidities for both members of the dyad. So when you hear me reference dyad on the future slides, you'll understand it's the survivor and the support person together. Hold on just a second. So when we're conducting research, we're always asked to come up with a theoretical foundation or support foundation of some type that guides our research. And for mine, I have two different aspects of a theoretical foundation that I really draw upon for this study. And that is, the first one is the research conducted by Hans Selye and Bruce McEwen. And their research focused on the influence of stress. And what you see in the top right corner is Hans Selye's description of the stress response mechanism in recovery, or not in recovery, but just in everyday life. And what Hans Selye says is that stress goes through three phases, and you see the three phases down at the bottom. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not, but you see phase 1, 2, and 3. And phase 1 is the alarm phase, and we all go through this. It's the initial reaction to stress, where the body prepares us by releasing stress hormones, and we go into a fight or flight situation. And then it can go into phase 2, or the resistance phase. And this is where, if stress keeps going on, the body adapts by maintaining elevated hormone levels. So it copes with the stress, but we have a cost associated with it at this point. And then if stress continues, we can enter into phase 3, and that's the exhaustion phase. And this is where we enter into prolonged stress, which leads to a depletion of our resources. It weakens our body's ability to cope. And this phase right here can actually result in causing health issues. Sorry, just 1 second. I'm going to take a drink real quick. So that is what Hans Selye had to say about stress. It's general adaptation syndrome. We go into fight or flight, we release hormones, we try to balance it out, but with prolonged exposure to stress, we enter into exhaustive phase that really wears and tears on our body. I really like that understanding of stress and how it influences us. Well, we also have Bruce McEwen that came in behind Hans Selye that expanded the understanding of what stress does to our bodies. And what Bruce had to say was his focus is allostatic overload. And allostatic overload refers to the cumulative wear and tear of stress on the body, and it considers hormonal and immune and cardiological responses. So Bruce goes on to say that too much stress for too long leads to deterioration of the physiological and the psychological systems. So both of them together highlight that aspect that we need a dedicated balance between stress, adaptation, and long-term health consequences. And this pairs perfectly with my research. How do we find that balanced approach to stress management? So I'll go on to the next slide. Another theory that I really wanted to support with my research is that dyadic aspect of recovery and illness management. So not only stress and how it influences us individually, but also the dyadic approach to recovery. So the dyadic illness management points out a couple of things, and that is our experience in recovery is a symbiotic relationship between the survivor and the support person slash caregiver. So we have an interdependence with each other throughout recovery. And the experience of one continuously influences the other one in our well being and our recovery goals. And the next thing where I've got that there's a negative feedback loop that develops where the support person's mental hygiene decreases relative to the survivor's complications and vice versa. This is where my research really jumps in. If there is a negative feedback loop that can develop, then there's also a positive feedback loop that can develop. And that's where I'm focusing my research. Can we influence each other positively throughout the recovery process? So Ralph had asked me, so what about stress management in stroke dyads in this research? Well, just like I pointed out previously, chronic stress leads to exhaustion and allostatic overload. Basically, this can delay the recovery process for the survivor. It influences the well-being of both individuals, and it can actually increase the mortality rates between the dyad. Stress overload, whether it's experienced by the survivor or the support person, it can manifest as emotional, physical burnout, inflammation, and chronic disease. We know this through a lot of research that's been published. And we have an ongoing need for psychosocial interventions that can help both individuals with the recovery process. And right now, when we think about psychosocial interventions, a lot of times they're not identified until later in the game when people are actually being diagnosed with depression. But the question is, if we implement stress management programs earlier, after immediate discharge, but given some time for the recovery process, if we implement these stress management programs, will they actually help with well-being, decreasing stress, and increasing well-being of the dyad? So another thing that I'd like to point out about dyadic research and why I'm so interested in that is the fact that we have little research on dyads currently. We either research the survivor or we research the caregiver, but there's been little research that combines both of them together. So we have a limited understanding of how dyads navigate the journey of recovery together. And we have a limited understanding of how we can implement these stress management programs into the recovery process, not just for the support person, but for the caregiver as well. So that's what my research is trying to do. We're never in it alone. So how do we navigate this journey together? And again, I'm using support person instead of caregiver because a lot of times we think of caregiver as immediately in your family, but we can have other supporters along the way and along the journey of recovery. So, how did this lead to mindfulness? Well, I'm a longtime practitioner of mindfulness. I've been practicing since 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. Shortly after my mother had passed from lung cancer, I went on a personal journey looking for ways to deal with stress and to cope and to just better my life in my journey in all of this. And I became acquainted with mindfulness. And for me, mindfulness is just a way to become aware of the current moment. I like to say that it reconnects our mind to our body, because a lot of times as we age, we become so logically dominated in our head that we forget to experience everything that's below our shoulders. And what that means to me is we become so mind oriented that we forget what it feels like to feel physically and to feel emotionally. And in even further, um, feeling emotionally, pardon me, without our, pardon me, let me take another drink real quick. I think we had some rain come in last night, and I think it's got the pollen stirred up around here. I've got a cottonwood tree that's right next to our place, so it's got a little pollen stirred up in me. Sorry about that. But going back to mindfulness, it's becoming aware of it helps you become aware of certain situations and experience. How am I thinking about this? How is that thought driving my emotions? How is that thought driving my emotions? And how do those emotions drive me physiologically and drive me physically, where I can experience something with an agreed upon outcome? And that is, the experience doesn't drive me, but I'm aware of the experience. I'm aware of my thoughts and my feelings. So mindfulness helps with stress reduction. It improves mental health. It enhances the ability to focus. It increases our physical health outcomes, and it also increases our awareness of self-compassion and loving kindness towards ourselves and others. It's a journey for sure, and it's not a quick fix by any means. But what I like to say is that it helps reconnect the mind back to the body. So when we experience something, the experience doesn't drive us, but um, we can become aware of what's happening in our thoughts and our physical sensations along with it. So it's not an explosive experience, so to speak. Mindfulness mechanism, I really love this slide a lot. And I found it from the University of California at Berkeley. And mindfulness also, in addition to training us to experience things and become aware of our experiences, it also stimulates our brain, and it influences mechanisms of the mind. So in mindfulness, we have different practices. We meditate, we learn to interpret our experiences, we learn how to become less judgmental and become more aware of um, our,
Nothing.
our easiness
Yes.
to judge certain situations. And then we also, in mindfulness, practice the art of discovery, but that's stimulating different areas of our brain. And so in meditation, even though mindfulness itself is not strictly meditation, it does include the art of becoming aware of situations. And that stimulates right here in the orange area, the dorsal medial prefrontal cortex. So it enables your thoughts to focus on one thing at a time. In the interpretation exercise, this stimulates the temporal lobe, which allows us to interpret events positively by weakening that fight or flight response mechanism, that we talked about with Hans Selye earlier. In our non-judgmental practice, we're stimulating the prefrontal cortex. And so that allows us to not be so judgmental. We are able to learn how to put Judge Judy or Judge Joe on a break and let them take a step back. And it causes us to feel less mental discomfort. Pardon me, less mental discomfort. And then in the practice of discovery, it stimulates the posterior cingulate cortex, In curiosity, or the art of discovery, going back to that child's mind, we talk about try to go back to the child's mind. It stimulates curiosity, amplifying the region of the posterior cingulate cortex, and it strengthens neuronal connections to become more self-aware. So this is how mindfulness stimulates different areas of the brain while you're practicing mindfulness. Through meditation, interpretation, non-judgmentalness, and discovery, which leads us to the research study. So getting to the study itself and what am I doing here and what am I trying to do? Well, my study is a mindful approach to managing stress. It's for stroke survivors and support persons. It's a pilot study, and that just means that we're trying to assess feasibility and acceptability of this modified mindfulness program. And what feasibility looks like is I've got a certain number of participants that I want to enroll. Can I enroll at least 50% or greater of that total number? And if I do, and I'm able to enroll these individuals, will they continue to attend the classes? And I'll tell you more about the study in just a second, the details of the study in just a second. And then I've also got acceptability that I'm looking at in the pilot study. Well, if participants enroll and if they attend classes, will they go through the entire study itself? Can I retain them for the duration of the study, which is 8 weeks? And will they complete their homework practice sessions? Another thing that we're looking at in the study is called exploratory objectives. And the exploratory objectives include questionnaires on stress and, questionnaires, a lot of different questionnaires that assess quality of life. Also have some questionnaires that look at your quality of sleep, self-compassion, loving kindness, but we'll look at those in just a second. I do want to let you know that the research is supported by a collaborative grant between the Association of Rehabilitation Nurses and the Agnes Marshall Walker Foundation. And Agnes Marshall Walker was a lady who started the American Association of Neurological Nursing. So both of these together supported my grant. And basically what they said is we need individuals that are focusing on different types of research. What we'd like to see in your research is whether or not you're able to address the psychological needs of individuals with chronic health conditions like stroke survivors. And of course I am. Whether or not you're able to focus on research that is centered on patient and family caregivers and education and healthcare decision making. And I was able to do that by including the caregiver in my research. Also looking at the influence of caregivers as a maintenance function and quality of life. So we're doing that through the intervention. It supports the support person in the modified mindfulness intervention. That's what the MBI stands for. And then our research also looks at post-discharge function and quality of life. And this research study is especially oriented towards stroke survivors who are at least 1 year post-stroke. So I had some criteria that I had to meet before they would agree to fund my research. And those are the criteria right there. Now then, the study itself. So who and how can join the study? The study includes stroke survivors and support persons. Everyone needs to be at least 18 years old or greater. Right now, everyone needs to be English speaking, and that's only because I don't have translators for my studies, but in the future, I hope to include that. Another thing, individuals need to be living in the United States. They need to be at least 1 year post-stroke. Individuals must have a modified Rankin scale or a score between 0 and 2. And what that means is that essentially a stroke survivor is able to live on their own for a week at home by themselves without cause for concern or safety. They must have reliable computer and internet access. Things that would exclude individuals from being part of the study is a formal diagnosis of trauma or PTSD, because that would kind of interfere with the research outcomes and the research objectives. They cannot be hospitalized for depression or psychiatric conditions. Again, that would interfere with the research outcomes. We wouldn't be able to tease apart information that we're trying to find in the study. They would be excluded if they're non-English speaking. Caregivers would be excluded if they are employed as a caregiver, either primary or secondary employment. And then anyone would be excluded from the study if they currently have a mind-body practice. And a mind-body practice is either meditation or Qigong, Reiki, mindfulness, anything that they do on a routine basis for more than a month, because we wouldn't be able to tease apart the secondary objectives of this research study if they already had that practice. But again, we're including stroke survivors, support persons. It's an 8-week program that includes weekly lessons. The lessons are 30 minutes each. There's also a homework lesson that goes with it that's somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. So basically, you've got 35-minute commitment each week for when you're part of the study. We've got before and after questionnaires because it's a before and after study. We're trying to see with those exploratory objectives, does the mindfulness program, not only if we build it, will they come and will they be a part of it, but does the mindfulness program change stress levels and quality of life? And the way that we look at that is through well-being measures such as depression, anxiety, positive affect, and well-being, behavioral discontrol, and general quality of life. We also ask that individuals complete a diary or a survey of their participation in the study. And so going back to the mindfulness intervention itself, again, I'd like to point out that the mindfulness intervention is based on core elements of breath work, body scan, movement, thoughts, emotions, self-compassion, loving kindness. Again, we're trying to reconnect the body, the brain back to the body, and we do it through these different exercises. And the exercises are based on the pillars of mindfulness, and that is acknowledging our current situation for what it is, accepting the current situation in the experience, and then releasing that experience so we're not embodying the experience and carrying it with us. And I mentioned before that it's a modified mindfulness intervention, and that differs from traditional MBIs or mindfulness-based interventions. You know, traditional interventions are usually 3 hours per week. Mine is narrowed down to a 30-minute session with a 5-minute homework. The traditional MBIs often include complex content. What I've tried to do here is just simplify it to get to the core of the pillars of mindfulness. A lot of times mindfulness interventions, traditionals are live. Mine is pre-recorded. It includes closed captioning. We do it in a sitting, relaxing position or lying down, whatever the participant can do on their own. It also includes support material that's electronic and printed. And then participants also have a follow-up with the mindfulness instructor, which happens to be me. And so I meet with individuals on a weekly basis to discuss the core content if they want to, but it's not required. And so far, I've had a mix of individuals that want to meet weekly versus just going on through the material. This seems pretty busy, but this outlines the research study itself. Again, it's mindfulness intervention for stroke survivors. We want to enroll 20 stroke survivors and 20 support persons. The screening period, all of this is online. So the screening period usually takes about 2 weeks. And the reason that it takes 2 weeks is by the time someone lets me know that they're interested in the study, and we schedule a time to meet online, just like we're doing now, it usually takes back and forth about 2 weeks. But once we schedule that time, we do a consent visit, and the consent visit is a 1.5 hour process where we meet on Zoom, just the two of us, and we talk about the details of the study. We talk about the stroke survivors' inclusion exclusion criteria, or the support person's inclusion exclusion criteria, make sure that they're still qualified for the study. And then we have the individual who enrolls in the study, once they consent, they complete about somewhere between 12 and 14 questionnaires. And I know that sounds like a lot, but the questionnaires differ in the amount of questions being asked. Some of them only ask 6 questions. A couple of them ask 12 questions, and there's one or two that has about 20 questions involved. So we're calling that pre-intervention surveys, but it's really before the study starts questionnaires. Because again, we're looking at a before effect and an after effect in the post-intervention questionnaires. Well, once you finish the questionnaires, you'll get a link through an email that takes you to all the video courses. And I release them one at a time. And the reason I do that is because I don't want individuals to feel pressured to just plow through the study. I want them to take their time and rest and digest on the material. So when you start the study, you'll get an introduction video that tells you about mindful awareness about the study and how to complete the homework associated with the study. And then 7 days later, you'll start the coursework, and it's 7 days in between each lesson. There's 7 days in between mindful awareness and breath work, another 7 days between the body scan, and so on down through the lesson. But again, it includes breath work, body scan, mindful movement, mindful emotions, becoming aware of the thoughts and how your thoughts drive your outcome physiologically and emotionally. It also includes gratitude and another lesson on self-compassion and loving kindness. And then at the end of the study, you'll do the same exact questionnaires that you did before. And what we're trying to do here is see a before and after effect. Did the intervention influence your perception of your stress and your quality of life? And that's the end of the study. Participants are paid or compensated for being part of the study. This is, 8 weeks, a total of 8 weeks of commitment. So they are compensated at certain time points, a total of $150 at 5 different time points. So it's $30 gift card about every 3 weeks. And this is, again, the same information laid out a little bit differently. It's the patient journey. You go through a pre-screening phase to make sure that you're qualified for the study. Then you're consented and enrolled in the study. You have 8 weekly modules. And it is about a 30-minute session with 5-minute homework, going through these different topics: breath work, body scan, emotions, thoughts, loving kindness, self-compassion, and awareness. And then you do the questionnaires again at the end. So back to the big picture, and I know this is a busy slide, but back to the point of the study. A feasibility acceptability study, if we build it, will they come? Will patients enroll? Will they participate and stay in the study for the duration? But the exploratory objectives is what we see right here. And that is, what are the outcomes of mindfulness? Can we use it? Going back over here on the right side, we see the yellow and the red. The yellow is that Hans Selye's general adaptation syndrome. Recovery can be stressful for all of us, survivors and support persons, for the dyad. And we experience that through increased heart rate, breathing, stress hormones. But we have ability to resist the stress. But with long-term chronic stress, we move over into exhaustion and allostatic overload with prolonged exposure to continuous alarm and resistance, leading us to exhaustion and decreasing our ability to recover, and also influencing the caregiver or the support person's health and well-being as well, the dyad's health and well-being. And this manifests as anxiety and stress and fear, inflammation and burnout, and sometimes even entering into chronic disease exacerbation. And what we're trying to do with the study is see when we implement mindfulness, remembering those pillars of mindfulness, acknowledging, accepting, and releasing, can we increase this gap right here between resistance and exhaustion? Can we buffer it? Can it insulate us? Can it increase our well being and decrease our stress? So, we're hoping to see a decreased emotional and physical exhaustion, improved social and emotional functioning, strengthened cognitive functioning, recovery of the mind and body. Remember what I said earlier, reconnecting that mind and body through practices of acknowledgement, through acknowledging our current emotions and our current physical status, accepting and investigating with curiosity, being able to describe our thoughts and our physical sensations, and then releasing them. Most importantly, releasing them. We acknowledge our experience and we can describe it, but we do not embody that experience and continue to carry it with us. Otherwise, it continues to weigh us down and shorten the space in between resistance and allostatic overload. But this is with practice, and it's over time. It's not a one-time experience. So it's definitely it's a routine itself. But this is a conceptual model that I came up with and published back in 2022, and that is, how does mindfulness influence chronic disease and stress? Just want to double check. So how's recruitment going right now with the study? Well, originally I told you we wanted 20 stroke survivors, 20 support persons, hopefully 20 dyads of these two combined, but right now it's a little bit slower than expected. We're averaging about 3 to 5 stroke participants screening per week, and we're only averaging about 0 to 1 support person screening per week. So that we had our first stroke survivor enrolled in April this year. We had our first support person enrolled in April of this year. And let me see, where are my numbers? Support groups. I've reached out to over 135 support groups just to get the enrollment numbers that we have right now. Out of those 135 support groups, 15 have agreed to share the research study with with survivors and with caregivers. 2 declined to share, and that's to be expected. You know, that's to be expected. Support, in addition to support groups, I've reached out to Facebook groups, and I've had 32 different groups that I've contacted. 3 of those groups agreed to post the study. And then I've had about 9 referrals, and out of those 9 referrals, 2 enrolled, and that started in May of this year. Oops, sorry about that. So again, the study was looking, the primary objectives for the study is acceptability and feasibility. And so that was looking at, would individuals, once they're screened, would they actually enroll? Would they attend the classes? And would they complete the homework? And I'm happy to say I've got right now 13 stroke survivors enrolled and 2 support persons enrolled, and they all have attended all of their classes and completed all of their homework. What I have not had is a dyad enroll, and that means a stroke survivor and someone who they consider to be a support person. And the interesting thing about this is it's not what I expected at all, but this is part of the research and the findings and the outcomes. So what does this mean? Are support persons busier? Do they not have time? What is it? So we're trying to tease out that information as we go along in the study. But I'm still hoping before the end of the study that I will be able to enroll a dyad, the survivor and a support person. And the thing about that is the individuals must complete the course separate from each other because you answer questions along the way throughout the study. So you can't answer them as a dyad together. But we'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed on this. And I told you earlier about the exploratory objectives of the study. So that is, does it influence stress? Does it influence sleep, self-compassion? There are some other questionnaires that people answer, but I thought these were the easiest just to kind of pull quickly. So these are the individuals enrolled. This is their information. Stress, just so you know, anything scoring above a 16 means that you're still experiencing high levels of stress. And these are individuals that are, this person is at least 3 years out of stroke, this person is 7, and then the other ones are at least somewhere between 5 and 12 years out of stroke. So you can see that stress is still taking place throughout recovery. It's not just that immediate discharge from the hospital. Stress is still taking place years after the stroke takes place. Sleep, I'm interested in this and hope to continue this research after I finish my PhD. But I think the quality of sleep also influences stress and recovery itself. So you see these high numbers, anything above 6 means that it's a poorer quality of sleep that's taking place. And then on self-compassion, anything below 3 means that the person has a little bit less self-awareness, self-compassion. And so that's concerning because that influences stress and it also influences recovery as well. So these are just some snippets of how the research is going so far. I mentioned earlier that I have 13 people enrolled. I do want to say that I've got 3 individuals that will be completing the study in the next mid-July. So everybody starts at a different time point and ends at a different time point. You don't do it all together. But it's good to know that the study is nearly 3 people have reached the halfway point for the study. Some feedback, because I asked for feedback with each lesson. And I just wanted to give you an idea of what other stroke survivors are saying about the study. So I always ask with each lesson, what did you like or dislike about week 1 video lesson? And that's mindful awareness. And participant number 8 said it was helpful because I learned how I can collect my thoughts, focus on what is right in front of me, and be mindful of the surroundings. They felt like it was more of a meditation that helped them calm down and appreciate what they have at the moment. And it's a different response for each person. Not everyone's going to say this. Another feedback from week 1 participant number 5 says, I know there's many layers to mindfulness, and that physical, psychologically, and mentally, our entire perception and awareness and body messages are important to be present in the moment to gather an intentional positive outcome. And mindfulness is a holistic approach of accepting moments in a particular life situation with goal of the best outcome for the self and others. So it's a little bit of a deep dive, but it's also becoming more aware of your perception of life and how it's taking place. And I think if I had to say what mindfulness is, that's exactly it. Becoming more in tune with your own perception of your experiences and reality. So what does the rest of the research look like for me? I hope to complete and defend this research in October and November of this year if recruitment goes well. That means that I would be actually walking for my graduation in December and possibly starting a postdoc at OHSU in Oregon to continue this exact research between stroke survivors and caregivers/support persons using integrative measures and integrative interventions. And so if you think that the research sounds interesting to you, or you think that you may have a friend or a family member or a support person slash caregiver who may be interested in the study, you can take your phone and scan that QR code, and a little yellow line will pop up that says red cap. Actually, the instructions are right here. Launch your camera, point it at this QR code, and then tap the redcap.uths.edu link. It's a really small one. And I'll send that to Ralph later, just in case anyone has questions or think that they may be interested. And so now I'd like to, before we do our practice, Ralph said that we could take a couple of minutes, and I hope we still have time, Ralph, to do we? Okay. Before we go into practice, just to let you feel what the experience is like in the study itself, I thought that we could do a breath work practice, which I understand that you guys are already practicing your breath work, and we could also do a body scan practice. But before we do that, I wanted to see, does anyone have any questions or comments or anything about the research study, the theory behind it, the stress management, the dyadic approach to recovery instead of a single approach to recovery, or any of the study? Nope. Okay,
Don't all
good.
speak at once.
Uh,
I just I just wanted to comment. I've talked with you a few times because I'm part of the study, and I'm really enjoying it. I think I'm week 3 and week 4, and I really like I I encourage anyone that wants to do it. I think the what she says about and in the slides and stuff about you the shock, the initial you have the stroke, and I went through all those things where I do that, then start to get fatigued and more depressed, and whatever, and then I got laid off from work and really started focusing on my recovery, and that's kind of and it's been going on 5 years. So anyway.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. I didn't know that you were here. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Jennifer.
I have a question.
Okay, good.
This is a very comprehensive research project, and it looks very well laid out. I'm very interested because I suffer from chronic stress problems. Just a little question on the research level. I don't have a dyad. Somewhere you can go after this, maybe if you'd like. Is having a dyad helpful? Like how does that rate among people who do not have a dedicated support person like me?
I think that it does help in recovery, and the research shows that the journey is symbiotic to each other. And so I'm not going to say it determines your outcome for sure. I think that's an individual journey, but I think having people there to support you along the way. And I mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure if you were on when we first started, but I mentioned earlier that um, support persons come in many different shapes, sizes, and forms. It's not necessarily someone that's immediately connected to you, and it's not necessarily someone who is living with you, but it can be a friend, a family member, or an extended person that helps you navigate the journey together. And having someone there to share that experience with non-judgmentally, who is aware of everything that you're going through, can be a pillar of support through your recovery process. And just to be clear, for this study, you don't have to have a support person to be part of the study, but I am hoping to get dyads in at least a couple of dyads who are willing to navigate the research study together.
Thank you for answering the question.
You're welcome.
Kevin, I'm impressed. How did you find? Oh, he's not there. I was curious how he found out about it. Because I only met you recently, Jennifer. The other thing is, if it sounds like you're still looking for some participants. So, two things we can do. I'm mentioning it now, and we can put links and things in the description underneath this video. And the other thing is, if you would like, we can make a separate post separate from when I post this video, asking for participants. One of the few Facebook group owners that believes in research and studies and such. Some people kick you out for not asking or posting research, which makes no sense to me, because if we're want to see change, we need to be part of that change, I think. And I also believe that science is good, focused recovery is good, knowledge is power. So, anyway. So those are two options to find you some more.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate you coming and sharing your information with us. So
I can't wait to, another thing that I'd like to point out too is I'd really like to be able to come back later after the study is over and be able to go through the study findings itself and let you know how everything, what was the outcome and what were the findings.
I'm more than open to that. Of course, you'll have to finish the study before we can do that, but you and I will stay in touch.
Okay, good. And you had mentioned something earlier about nature therapy.
About what therapy?
Nature therapy, that I'm a certified nature
Oh
associate.
yeah. Oh
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not certified, but I find a lot of peace in the woods. I'm a nature photographer, and I've led a number of wildflower walks and butterfly walks and things. I know how to identify a lot of stuff. So I always, I'm interested just because I didn't realize that there was such a thing.
There is.
And I didn't, so just, it's interesting because like I said, when I'm out in the woods, I used to say, boy in woods with camera is a good thing. So I would take my camera and go out and see what I could find. And you're really just not thinking about anything much else. It's one of the things where you can, what I call, get outside yourself. So a form of yoga to me. Yoga to me, I have a very loose definition. It means anything that lets you, like cooking can be yoga. Yard work can be yoga. Anything to get you outside of yourself and put you into a mindful state, I suppose.
Yeah. I recently certified for the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy to become a nature therapy guide. And we don't really focus on identification of trees or species of plants or anything like that, but it is exactly what you just said. It's getting outside of yourself, outside of your head, and back into sensory awareness through exploring outdoor in natures, whether it's scent or sight or touch or sound or whatever. I would really enjoy, if you guys are interested in it, hosting a remote nature therapy walk with you. If everybody would like to, we can make it as short or as, I can do a 45-minute. I think 45 minutes is a really good middle of the ground or middle meeting space for a therapy, a remote walk. And what we would do is each individual, wherever you are, as long as you've got a phone, a smartphone, and you can do Zoom on your phone, I can guide you remotely. We all have different experiences, but we do an immersion, which is a guided experience. So it's going to be different for me because my landscape is completely different here in Memphis than wherever you guys are located, but it's still a very calming and wonderful experience. So think about it, and if you're interested, I'll get with you, Ralph, and maybe we can schedule that sometime.
I am, and I get a lot of votes too.
Hey Ralph, I heard, but I was
Oh
doing
yeah, okay. I'm just
being
curious, Kevin.
no. I think I maybe Jocelyn's group, somebody posted it. I learned about it on Facebook. I even notified Winnie. And so Winnie, I made sure she got the info because she was interested. I posted uh, Jennifer's, you know, thing, but there's so much stuff that gets posted, it's easy to scroll through.
I was just good. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying I was just interested because I met Jennifer through our friend Mitch Raymond, who's a physical therapist who had a stroke at 6. He's come on a couple of times. He's come on Tuesdays once, and then he and an occupational therapist friend of mine and myself have done now 2 talks. We're talking about doing a third one with the 3 of us. We kind of I don't know, we got some kind of synergy going. So I don't know, Jennifer, if you've heard we all know about lizard brain, right? Have you ever heard the term monkey brain?
Yeah, I think I've got it quite a bit.
It's my understanding is like kind of like overthinking. So the whole nature thing gets rid of the monkey brain, like the mindfulness and stress reduction helps push away the lizard brain, which is usually associated with fight or flight. I think I've got that all right.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And if you go back and remember that image that I showed you of the brain and the different practices and how it stimulates different areas of our brain. Um, so that's another way to think about these. I call them integrative holistic approaches to health and wellness, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's outdoor therapy, whether it's art therapy, or whatever you get in the zone where everything else escapes and you can just be there in that moment. That is so amazingly beneficial to wellness. So,
Right. Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean by, getting outside yourself, by being present is another way of saying it, I suppose.
yeah, exactly.
Present in the moment.
Yeah. It reminds me of when, I don't know if you can recall this being a child and being so focused on something, whether it's a flower or an ant or whatever, you would just sink into that experience, whatever it is, and being able to drive that focus of, wow, this is amazing. And it's not that everything's amazing or anything like that, but being able to connect to experience and really delve into the sensations that are associated with it as well. So I could talk about it for hours. I'd love it. Integrative holistic health. And I think I mentioned something to you, Ralph, too, and I didn't pull it together, but I can share it with you if you want to share it with other people. We have an integrative holistic approach to healthcare that is spreading like wildfire across the nation right now. I just got back from a conference, I think it was in April, on the International Integrative Holistic Congress, and it's academic institutions across the nation that are looking at, in addition to standard of care and the traditional way of healthcare, looking at how can we help other people, how can we help people through different avenues, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's outdoor therapy, whether it's all different types of approaches to wellness and healing.
Well, I mean, if you have any materials on it, you and I can communicate.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to put it in. We have a wellness after stroke group. Got several groups. I can put it in front of at least 25,000 people.
Yeah. Let's share that.
Let's do it. Yeah. In fact, we
That
have,
Yeah, that would help you see what you have locally. You can go through this website and look and see where all these different centers are at, and they're spread all over the nation. So it's just uh, learning about it that really spreading it out with the public. So do we still have time to practice, or do you want to, should we call it good or?
that's up to you. I mean, we're all here, and I don't have, you know, I'm free.
Okay.
I never know whether these things will go, 45 minutes or an hour and 45 minutes. So
Okay, I've got
yeah.
time to do two practices. We can do the mindful breathing practice. I'll guide you through that. And we can do the body scan exercise, which is one of my favorites. Well, both of them are, but especially the body scan. We can go through those. And then after that, I will need to hop off, unfortunately, and get back to work.
Well, no, I mean, it's a matter of whether you have time. I
Yeah,
think most of us have got time.
Wait,
good,
I
good.
got a question.
Okay.
Okay.
You gather all this information, and then what is the final outcome?
Great question. And that's what's leading my next step in research. So after this research is analyzed, what I will do is take this same research study and take the feedback from Kevin and the other participants and change the research study to better benefit stroke survivors and caregivers and make another study out of it. And so hopefully that the long-term outcome is to build post-recovery stress management programs that are outside of a hospital, outside of a clinic, uh, something that you can access on your own at home to help manage the stress of recovery itself at any time point. Because, like the research is showing, we've got individuals that are anywhere from 3 to 12 years out that are still having stressful experiences along with the recovery process. Recovery isn't just one and done and it's over. Recovery is a lifetime journey after stroke and other chronic illnesses. It's a lifetime commitment. So, what I would love to do is partner with individuals like the American Heart Association or AARP or these different organizations to network with stroke survivors and caregivers, support persons, to make this widely available to anyone who wants to experience it, not just in a research study, but just in everyday life. So hopefully it would look something like you going to AHA's website and clicking on stress management program, 8-week study, not 8-week study, but 8-week program. But that's fingers crossed. I don't know if that will actually happen, but I would love to see, or partnering, I said that I'd reached out to 135 support groups. Those were all from the AHA's stroke support group network. So I go on their website. Maybe just even if the study research is positive, if there are good outcomes, then maybe re-recording this and making it available to all of the stroke support groups members who want to experience it themselves, adapting it to any feedback that's provided. Yeah. So I think that's it.
We'll help.
So,
We'll
so
help.
you're really gearing it to stress related. So if I'm at home one day and I'm all of a sudden have a stress moment, I would just look up the stress section and go your whatever you're doing.
Yeah. The classes, the lessons individually all help you become more in tune with your stress, how you embody it, how you feel it and think about it. So it wouldn't just be like one class, but it would be like a short series of classes that you could do to help with that. Thank you for asking.
All right. Well, we better get to the two exercises so before you turn into a pumpkin.
I know, right? Alrighty, so why don't we go ahead and take a minute and let's get settled in our space and begin to allow your body to Get comfortable, reposition yourself wherever you're at. And if you're comfortable, I encourage you to go ahead and close your eyes or just gently lower them to the bottom of the ground or a space on the wall, something like that. And as you're settling, I want you to allow your spine to lift. Let your shoulders lift a little bit softly. And we'll begin by taking a full breath. And the way that we'll do this is in through the nose, hold at the top for a couple of seconds, and then release it through the mouth. And I'll guide you through this. So let's go ahead and breathe in through the nose, hold at the top, and then out through the mouth. Starting to feel our blood pressure change, our heart rate change, our body starting to feel different. In through the nose, hold at the top, then out through the mouth. And as we continue to breathe, go ahead on your own. I'd like for you to pay attention to the way that your chest feels and your stomach feels when you're breathing. When you're breathing in through the nose and you feel that gentle rise of your chest and your stomach expands a little bit. And then as you're exhaling out through your mouth, the fall of your chest and the fall of your stomach. Let's do it a couple more times. In through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, hold at the top, just for a couple of seconds, and then out through your mouth. And if you notice that your mind is wandering, that's totally okay. Just gently bring your focus back to your breathing. We always say in mindfulness, we're going back to the breathing. When our mind wanders, we bring it back to the breath in through the nose. Hold at the top, and then out through the mouth. And maybe you're feeling the air as it flows through your nose, how cool it is. And then on your exhale, you can actually feel the warmth of your breath going out through your mouth. And I'll give you a couple of seconds to do this on your own. Just enjoy in through your nose, holding at the top, and then out through your mouth. And now with one final breath, noticing any sensations or feelings in your body, bringing your mind back to your breath. And when you're ready, we can gently open our eyes and return to our body. So that's a little of what you would experience in the research study. That's one of the breathing practices, and that's 1 week of material right there. The practices are really short and sweet. And then the other practice that I really, really enjoy, and I hope everyone else does too, is the body scan. And the body scan will just go ahead and roll into that. Go ahead and reposition yourself and get relaxed. Let's go ahead and straighten our spine. Settle our bottom and get relaxed. Close your eyes or lower your gaze, whichever one you're comfortable with. And what we're going to do is check in with our bodies. We're going to help settle our mind and notice what physical sensations and emotions are currently present for us right now. So let's take a slow, deep breath in through the nose. Hold at the top as you can, and then out through the mouth. And I'd like for you to slowly, slowly bring awareness to the top of your body. Let's start with the head. What sensations are you feeling? We're moving down and around to our face, in our neck. Maybe you can feel it when you swallow. You can feel tingling on your cheeks. Continue to breathe slowly. Maybe you can feel the air against your skin, whether it's warm or cool. And we're going to move our focus to our neck and shoulders. Maybe you're holding something in your shoulders. Is there a presence of a tightness or a tension? Or are you relaxed? And what does that relaxation feel like in comparison? Noticing sensations, movements, and holding of anything. Let's continue to breathe in and out slowly, holding at the top and out through the mouth. Now let's slowly guide our focus down to the arms and the hands. Just relaxing our arms and hands, either against your lap or if you're in a chair, against the arms of the chair. What do you feel? Do you sense whatever is supporting you in your body? Do you feel the clothes against your skin? The front and the back? Maybe you have a watch on or a ring on, and you can actually feel that object on your skin. And now let's slowly move our focus to our seated position. Feeling the contact of your body with the chair or the cushion or the couch, wherever you may be. How does it press against you? Your legs, your back, and your spine. Continuing to breathe. Feeling it close against your skin. And now let's move our focus to our upper legs, how they're seated, to our lower legs. Maybe you can feel the blood flowing through. Maybe your feet are tingling. Does your body feel awake? And noticing if there are any places calling out for your attention throughout your body. Sometimes my knees call to me. They really want me to pay attention to them. Sometimes it's my hand. Different areas, different sensations. Also, let's focus on sensations that make us feel vibrant or dynamic and alive. The air flowing through our nose, down through our lungs. the awareness of just being here and being present. And we'll go ahead and take another couple of deep breaths in through our nose, holding at the top, and then out through the mouth. And giving our body one more time to talk to us, to speak to us, to engage with us. What is it trying to say? Thank you for everything that you do. And another deep breath in through the nose, holding at the top and out through the mouth. And you can slowly open your eyes and bring your gaze. And that's the end of the body scan. And when you're ready, just go ahead and reposition yourself. And stretch if you need to. And another deep breath, just bring us back. So these are just a couple of the exercises, but I think the body scan, the reason I feel like that's most important is because I mentioned earlier at some point in life, we just cut off all connectivity down below our shoulders. A lot of times we stay so logically left-brained that we forget that our body speaks to us daily, moment by moment. And it's this wonderful, beautiful relationship between our brain and our physicalness and our emotionalness, mentally, physically, emotionally, in all other ways as well. And so mindfulness helps us slow down and become more in tune with and more aware of this whole experience, not just one or the other. It reconnects, and it's amazing with practice how sometimes I won't even acknowledge the stress in my brain, but all of a sudden something will trigger and I'll think, oh my gosh, I've got my hands clenched. Wow, what is going on here? Like, or there's a tightness somewhere in my body that I haven't really paid attention to. And learning to re-engage with that conversation with my body physically and the physiological processes is just this beautiful experience. And it doesn't always work. Somebody can cut me off in traffic and I'll, kind of snap. But with time and experience and practice, I'm learning to become more in tune with that, which diseases me. And become more aware of it so I can kind of manage my thoughts and manage my responses to it. It's a lifetime journey. I mean, it's a lifetime journey, but it's better than this automatic reflex of everything outside of me controlling my life. It's really learning to become a manager of myself again. So thank you, Ralph. Thank you, everyone, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the body scan and the breath work. And I hope that we have the opportunity to do an outside nature walk together. It's nothing but, find a space on your patio, find a space in your yard. It's nothing big at all. If you can't go outside, then try to get to a window where you can observe something outside. If you can't and you don't have a window, then it's finding a plant inside. It's really this sensory experience in immersion. So I hope that we can keep in touch with each other. Thank you, everyone. And I guess that's all I've got.
Well, we want to thank you, and we look forward to the nature thing, and also when you finish your research, the conclusions that you come to.
Thank you.
Be happy to work with you on both, and then also spread the results of your research.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. And I'm going to go ahead and drop off now. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Do all you can with what you have, in the time you have, in the place
Do all you can. Do all you can.